Everyone's welcome to Baron Munchausen. Here with us today, we have Lord Percival Fishbottom, Viscount von Vickersham V, Horatia Hornbreaker, and Cornbread, who will be playing our game today. And we hope you enjoy it. With that, I will turn it over to Viscount von Vickersham to explain the rules, and I will leave.
Thank you very much. So, the Tall Tales of Baron von Munchausen is a game wherein we make up tall tales about our explorations. I, Viscount von Vickersham V, have invited 3 of my very best friends, all of us storied explorers who have gone on many, many adventures, to this, our usual Friday evening pub, where, of course, we like to sit and tell each other of those stories that we've all heard many times before, but of course they all grow in the telling. And so what is going to happen is we will each go in order and we'll each tell a story. And that story will be prompted by the person who told the story before them. So I think that we've got, I'll go first, and then Cornbread will have you go next, and then Horatia after that, and then Lord Percival last. And so when I'm done with my story, I will turn and I will say, now, Cornbread, that would be wonderful. Why don't you tell us about the time when you managed to escape from the depths of Siberia with only a single sled dog and your 3-year-old niece for company, or whatever. And then off you go to tell a grand story of adventure. And this would be wonderful, but there is one other twist, which is that at any time, and when we do this in person, we give people tokens, and so you have to spend a token to do this, but it'd be really tough to do that virtually, so we're just going to hope that it doesn't get out of hand. Someone else, any of the storytellers can jump in, and they can, if I'm here and I'm saying like, yes, I went into the hall and there was the entire King's Special Guard, and I started to fight, and then perhaps Lord Percival might jump in and say, "Oh yes, I remember this. Wasn't it true that at that point you had still had one hand tied behind your back while you were about to fight those people?" And I would say, "Oh yes, thank you for reminding me," and then I have to add that detail into the story. So
I've also seen it done as a but wait, the Prussian Guard had been disbanded by that point, so you could not have fought them all single-handedly, and then you have to either find a polite way to tell me to shove it or incorporate that, or make a really good excuse. Exactly.
That's exactly the kind of thing that we want to see. So, does that make sense to everybody up on the stage? Cool. I am excited then to hear some really excellent stories, and I will go first. So, would any of the 3 of you like to tell the old Viscount what story you want to hear tonight?
Viscount, why don't you tell us the tale of the time that you were shipwrecked off the coast of Tasmania and had to eat your fellow crewmates?
Oh, this is a harrowing tale, but I know why you want me to tell it. So we had taken several ships on an adventure around the world. We were circumnavigating the globe. It was the first true circumnavigation because we were going to go around several times without stopping. And of course we had 3 ships with us. And we had done a lot of trading. We hadn't stopped, but we had done it with other ships that we had come into contact with, and we ended up. It just turns out that our helm didn't see the rock that was in front of us, and so all three ships just slammed right into the rock. It was really a sight to see. And we ended up on this small island. And I mean, you say that we had to eat each other, but really it was mostly because there was no ship left and the island was only so big. And so immediately we had to make some choices. Obviously, the helm and the crew up on the crow's nest who didn't see the rock, they went first because it was their fault. But
entirely just.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. But of course, as we ventured deeper into the island, there was a beach that we had set up camp on, and then there was a forest, and we went into the forest and we saw this cave. And so I gathered up 5 of my bravest crew, and all of us, we went into this cave, and it went down and down and down, and I thought that it was getting hotter, and eventually it turned to a right, and I see 3 giant lizards sitting on glowing coals. Well, I don't think that they had seen us yet, and we immediately went back around the corner and started to strategize. And then we heard squeaking at our feet, and down below our feet, we saw that there was a tiny lizard, and it was studded with gemstones along the back, and they were glowing red. And without even thinking, one of my crew snatched it up and yelled, "Run!" And so we took the lizard and we ran out of the caves, and we made it back to camp. And we thought that everything was safe, and we were going to try to figure out. Okay.
But Viscount, I have heard that the bite of the ruby-encrusted gemstone lizard is highly toxic.
That is true, and that's why only 4 of us made it out of that cave.
And then you couldn't eat him. My God.
Well, I mean, we learned that later. That's another story. And it's tough because we only had so many crew left. But we grabbed it and we ran, and we took it back to camp, and we thought, well, this will be wonderful. When we eventually get help and we eventually get back to home, we'll be able to put this in a zoo or exhibit it or give it to somebody who knows how to take care of fire-encrusted salamanders. And then that's when we heard the rumbling. For, you see, we had taken the only child of this, I don't know if you know, but the fire-encrusted salamander has 3 parents. And that's when we heard the rumble of all, yes.
They're very progressive lizards.
Of all 3 of those parents who had noticed that their only child was gone. And the whole island was rumbling. The whole island was shaking. And then the thing that we thought was a mountain, it turns out it was a volcano. So we had no ships. We had no way to get off the island. And the volcano was spurting lava up into the air. And we looked around, and we were totally at a loss what to do. And we decided that we were going to substitute one of our own for the taken lizard, which we didn't know where it was at that point. It had run off. So we looked around, and all of my crew looked to me because, of course, I was the leader of the expedition, and that, of course, is my it's my duty that if the rest of my crew can get off of the island, I will stay. So I went and I started to climb the volcano, and it was a tough climb. I was hopping from cooled piece of magma to cooled piece of magma, all the way up to the top of the volcano, and right at the top, one of the salamanders was sitting leaning over the caldera of the
Now,
volcano.
Viscount, I don't wish to imply anything about your personal life, but I was
Yes,
under the
of
impression
course.
that if one is going to sacrifice someone to the volcano, virgins are preferable.
Well,
And you have 5 illegitimate children.
I do, and I think that will make sense by the end of this story, Lord Percival. If you'll just bear with me for a moment, that's a really good point. Although, with the audience that we have amassed here in this our favorite pub, maybe it would be better for polite society. But you
To
do
draw
bring
a
up a
veil
good point.
over the details. Yes, I understand completely.
And so I went up and I looked into the caldera of the volcano, which had quieted for a moment, and I saw that actually at the top was yet another ruby-encrusted salamander, and its rubies were orange; they were yellow hot, and it was sitting there, and it was stirring up the lava, and it had calmed for a moment. And I noted it wasn't one of the 3 parents, and it wasn't the baby one. It had actually looked like it had perhaps, was somewhere in between. And I thought back to my training. I thought back to what they told me in the Naval Academy, and what I had learned as a sailor all those years. And I took a chance, and I leaned over the caldera, and I kissed it right on its mouth. And, well, as you know, the laws of our country forbid the marrying of a man and a lizard. So that's why all 5 of my children are illegitimate. But we've been very, very happy ever since.
We will get those laws changed eventually, Viscount.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We're fighting the good fight. If only the House of Lords didn't have such sticks up their asses.
The love between a man and a child salamander is a beautiful thing.
But eventually,
do your children take after you or your spouse?
Well, I mean, Cornbread, you've been to the dances as well. You know that. Sally.
I mean,
and
I haven't
Emily,
seen them since they were eggs.
That's true. Yes. Well, Sally and Emily take after their mother, and Pierre, of course, takes after me. And then the other 2 haven't been introduced to polite society yet, so I feel like, I feel like it probably would be telling, really. The salamanders like to keep that close to the chest. And yeah, so her parents objected, but eventually we won them over, and the 3 salamanders decided to substitute for our 3 ships. And we headed back here, and that's how I stand before you, able to tell this tale.
A noble story of love and adventure and cannibalism.
Mm-hmm. Well, every
volcanoes.
every good naval story
Making out
involves
with
some cannibalism.
volcanoes.
Okay, so that's the first round, and now thank you, Lord Percival, for the prompt. So that's my tale for tonight, and I would love to hear some more. Cornbread, perhaps, and I know that I ask for this tale so often, but perhaps you could tell us about the time when you were when you found yourself knocked out. Oh,
Excuse me. Thank you.
When you found yourself having been knocked out, awoken at the top of the tallest tower that you had ever seen, tied up, and how did you escape down from there and get back to us?
Sure. I mean, as well, you might know, I'm a thief of many talents, and my skills are legendary throughout this land. And at this point, I consider myself retired, but there's always that one job that may appeal to my senses. And this was, this was about the time when I was, you know that King Ofred of the lasagna people.
Well known.
Yes, very well known. The lasagna people, you know,
A man of many layers.
he's had many a vendetta against, my kind. Those of us who are infused with carbohydrates. And so he boasted far and wide about the security of his treasury and how no thief could ever take his most prized possession.
I remember when he had posters printed and slapped about town on walls.
Yes, he was quite proud of his new treasury and how secure it was. And he had a brand new crown made out of meatballs and noodles. And, it was encrusted. The noodles were made out of garlands of gold. The meatballs were made out of studded rubies and huge rubies the size of your fists. And of course, that sort of prize was too tempting for me. And of course, the insult he laid to my cornbread people, I could not stand for that. So, I decided to break into his treasury vault. And this took some planning. I adopted several disguises, including one of his guard, to investigate the nature of the vault. And I took my journey, and, on the darkest night of the month, I waited until the guards changed their routes, knocked one out easily, after I replaced one of his evening draughts with the sleeping potions. And I crept along, and I was looking for the stash of tools that I had.
Now, Cornbread, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I do remember that previously when you've told this tale, your sister had previously defected and become one of the king's guard to guard the treasury. Was that the guard that you knocked out, or did you encounter later?
Well, I'm getting to that. My
Okay.
sister, and we are actually identical twins, and so we, although we had very different ambitions in life. My ambition in life being
Naturally.
to eat as many carbohydrates as possible and to steal as many things my little hands could carry, and her ambition to be, the leader of the King's Guard, to rise up and become second in command and be the general of many armies. And, she's a very logistical sort and thrives in that sort of structured environment. And so we, after our youth, we parted ways, and we had a huge estrangement. But we had a quite, so I remember I was creeping along, and then, someone crept up on me and knocked me out. It was a very quick, one of those very quick poison darts, or like a dart loaded with, you can get any potion master to make you a very nice sedative. And if you have someone with very excellent aim with a crossbow, you could easily take out a target that way. So me, an innocent thief, I was appalled that someone needed to take me out this way. So I awoke, tied and in the tallest tower of the King Offered of the lasagna people's castle. And I awoke, and I looked into the eyes of a man who I'd never met before. And he was like, and he immediately said to me, "Ah, yes, Priscilla, now that I've found you." And Priscilla is my sister's name.
Awkward.
Of course.
Yes, he was like, "Now that I found you, will you reconsider my proposal?" And so I had absolutely no idea what was happening, except that my sister had gotten herself involved with some sort of strange plot or, you know, this very desperate man who thought his proposal would be much better received after tying his entreaty to the top of the highest tower of the
villain
of the castle.
Well, some people are into that.
That's fair. I didn't know your sister.
And I was like, perhaps I did not know my sister very well. So I realized I was in quite a pickle, and this man, I attempted to entreat to him, and I was like, I am not Priscilla. We have two very different birthmarks on our face. And then after some time, he was like, oh, well, you look exactly like her. And I explained that we were twins. And then I asked, you know, as charming as I can be, you know, try to appeal to his senses as a person. And he explained to me that he was also of the lasagna people, and he was charmed by Priscilla and wanted to marry her. And and he had no idea about King Offred's insult to the cornbread people, or the cornbread way of life. And so I asked him if he had ever tried a carbohydrate that was fluffy and delicious. You know, among our people, we you know, when we come of age, we choose our favorite carbohydrate, and then that is how we choose our names.
I never knew that. That's wonderful. It's a wonderful tradition.
So he wanted to learn more, and he finally understood more about Priscilla and her background and why she had felt disconnected from the lasagna people.
But wait a moment. What kind of carbohydrate is Priscilla?
You see, Priscilla had never chosen hers because she was torn between garlic bread and tater tots.
The eternal
terrible
dilemma.
choice.
And so she felt like she was not prepared to marry because she had not chosen a name yet. And so I explained to her intended that.
Sorry, what was his name?
His name was Meatball.
Solid lasagna person name. Yep.
Yes.
Very common over there. I hear it's like Smith.
Yes. And so I explained to him this tradition among our people, the carbohydrates, that perhaps she was adrift because she had not chosen a name for herself yet. And usually people do not consider themselves of age or prepared to invest in an emotional partnership of a marriage before they have chosen this name. And so he took this into consideration. And then at that point, Priscilla found us. And then I did learn that this was one of their favorite tower spots. And then I was like, this seems to be a private conversation, you two, at this point. So, and then I retreated and went back to the vault where the guards were still asleep. And I made off into the vault and claimed my prize. And then, once I was safely back in my hideout, wrote Priscilla a letter telling her I had met, her intended, and he seemed like a good sort. And I wished them all the best. And I offered some sagely sisterly advice regarding her name and our traditions. And, a year later, I received a wedding invitation, for she had chosen to merge her name. She had decided upon garlic tater tot breads. And their wedding was a
lot of hyphens.
Yeah, but she's very happy, and their wedding was
no cultural judgment, Lord Percival.
You can totally make it work.
And their wedding was a grand affair with many savory treats and carbohydrates abound.
And she didn't get into trouble for having left the Lasagna King's vault unguarded?
Oh no, that they blamed that entirely upon a different kingdom, because he had no shortage of enemies.
Oh, wonderful.
The Casserole Kingdom is nothing but brigands and villains.
They take a lot of heat, but I feel like they always come out okay. Oh, thank you so much.
I've always felt the hot dish kingdom, was suffered unduly for their association with the casserole people.
Well, they're stuck right in the middle of the continent. There's not a lot that they can do about that. All right, Cornbread, if you'd like to give Horatio, tell her what story you'd like to hear.
Sure, Horatio. I'd love to hear about your encounter with the flesh-eating manatees this year. I hear that you actually were able to tame one.
Well, allow me to wet my whistle. As you all know, I am the ship's parrot of the HMS White People. I don't care too much for captains. Here, there, everywhere. They come and they go. I go with the ship. I was somewhat surprised when our captain this time diverted from our planned course of polar exploration to Washington, D.C. God help us all. But it would appear that we had a congressional commission. Of course, you all know that the Earth is hollow. Yes, I don't have to give a lecture.
Yes, well-known fact. Well-known fact.
Of course, yes. I didn't mean to cast aspersions. So we were given a commission by Congress to journey to the center of the hollow Earth and begin diplomatic relationships with whosoever we found there. I spoke with the congressional parrot. Neither one of us approved in the least, but there was just a lot of Madeira to be had. And what can you do when you are attached to a ship? You go where it goes. The journey to the Gap, enter the Earth, mostly uneventful. I've been there a few times before. We went over the edge without too much trouble. It's a bit of a roller coaster ride, but a good landing. Unfortunately, the edge of the Earth, it's sort of like when you soft boil an egg and you tap the top of it with your teaspoon and you scoop it out, and there's all the good golden yolk in the middle. But that savage little edge all around. We have one of those in our planet as well. And you see, when the water up in the far Arctic, it all goes over the edge, much like the yolk spilling out onto your saucer. And unfortunately, that involves a great many fish. Now, normally I would be delighted by this. I can just sort of stand on the prow and open my mouth and it just all pours in. But unfortunately, there were a great many manatees this time.
But Horatia,
I
was under the impression that manatees were entirely a tropical species and the far polar north would be too cold for them.
Oh, it's all in the currents, you see. It's all in the jet stream or the Gulf Stream or the Robert and Stephen Stream. I don't know what they're all called, but the currents are terribly fierce when it gets up toward the Gap, and it just pulls them up from the tropics. I dare say they were as surprised as we were. You have not lived until you've seen 45 or so massive starving manatees in a state of absolute shock, flying out over the Gap in the ceiling of the Earth and coming down in a belly flop of biblical proportions. I'm not sure there are belly flops in the Bible, but if there are, this would certainly have been highlighted as one of the greats. So they all came sailing down. It's all in Leviticus, isn't it? It's just the most trouble and the most wonder in the Bible. So they all came flying down towards us, and our ship had already sort of made its passage into the dark areas before you truly enter the interior. And their eyes shone in the dark. I was extremely concerned. Speaking all animal tongues as I could do, I could hear them arguing over which of, not me, but which of the men to have for dinner. And you've heard of powder monkeys, yes?
Of course.
No. Please tell us a little bit about them.
Oh, well, it is the custom in Britain and other civilized countries these days to kidnap small boys from their families and force them to perform on ships and carry the powder to and fro the cannons. It's a wonderful life for them. They never complain even a little bit. The families don't either. It's really a charity that the English government performs for those who are less fortunate. But it turns out, this year, the people grew attached to their children in a way I have no particular explanation for. I drop my eggs willy-nilly, and I have no concern for what happens to them after I've gone. But humans started loving them. Yeah. So my ship used actual monkeys for it. Surely the House of Commons was at fault. Truly cannot listen to a word they say. So it was important that I established there were a great number of monkeys on board our ship. They talk somewhat less than the human ones, but they're much, much snugglier. It's really just a better situation all around, except for those who are less fortunate and now are cursed with many, many more children. But anyway, so as the manatees were following us, and I could hear them growling and making manatee noises, manatee languages, and they were discussing how much Edward, the second in command, how good Edward Bacon would taste. The monkey started to get extremely agitated, just shrieking and running up and down the gunnels, throwing what monkeys will throw whenever they could. And that was when that old people who live in the interior of the earth, and we had heard rumor, of course, this was what President Adams had hoped that we would find and strike up some kind of cordial relations with their queen, king, whosoever we should encounter. So we had the manatee, we were stuck, as the ancient proverb would have it, between monkeys and the moles. So...
Yeah. Horatia, I hate to interrupt it. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but I'm so excited to hear about the rest of the story, given that, if I remember correctly, while you could understand all of the languages of people and animals, you could not speak anything except for English.
In defense of Horatia, the beak is not meant as a device to, speak the terrible glibbering tongue of the manatee.
Of course, that's what makes the tale wonderful in the telling.
Don't also the flesh-eating manatees find that the droppings of monkeys a particular delicacy?
Well, I'm not proud of this next part. And you are quite right. I couldn't speak back to them, but I prefer not to speak to anyone if I can help it at all. The humans only enjoy me saying, "Hello, cocky," or I hesitate even to repeat it. It's offensive to my people, but
it's okay. You don't have to. It's okay.
Polly, want a cracker?
There are children present, Horatia.
I am sorry. Let us move on. Yes, well, I'm not proud. I'm not terribly proud. And I did suggest it, so you might think I would be proud, as it worked out well enough. And would I have made the same choice if not for the dastardly work of the House of Commons? I can't say. But, the monkeys overboard to distract the flesh-eating manatees. They'd already been hit in the face by a number of droppings, so it took them a moment to realize that the entire monkey was coming right at them. And they're not fur-eating manatees, by and large, but when you are at the center of the earth, you can't really, you can't be a chooser. So they started to gobble up the monkeys, which on the one hand solved one of our problems in that they were waylaid behind us as we were still making good time toward the citadel of the mole people. But we had no more creatures to carry gunpowder or man-arc cannons. Bit of an oversight on my part. But, well, as I said, I go with the ship, not the crew. Not my problem is the motto of my house. So onwards and upwards.
And certainly no longer your monkeys.
Sorry?
Not your problem, and certainly no longer your monkeys.
No longer, indeed. I can see that Lord Percival would be welcome in any fine parrot establishment anywhere on the high seas or the low seas, as the case may be. And so, with only a few of the manatees still following after us, again, I must say that Edward just was irresistible to them. Every time he would go near the railing, they would just have, it was as though a band of boys had come to town. They were just milling around, going mad and making these shrieking noises. I don't know how one gets to be the primary food stuff of manatees, but Edward certainly was it. We were taken in.
Did you have ancestors from Florida, perhaps?
Oh, are you implying it was Florida man on my boat, my ship?
No, perhaps only an eighth.
I shall never live down the shame. I never shall. We were taken in by the mole people, but you must understand about their kingdom is that the water of the underlands flows all through their city. It's much like Venice, smells vastly worse, but much like Venice, the water flows all the way through. So the manatee, the few of them that were still obsessed with Edward, were able to follow us all the way through to the grand halls of the mole capital, where we were.
And of course, the hospitality of the mole people is famed, as long as you do not overstay your welcome.
And as long as you don't mind dirt as your food stuff. It was nothing but dirt. It was mud pies and dirt crumpets, and it was just, everything was just crawling with bubbly broiled dirt. So as long as you don't mind that, their hospitality is famous, absolutely famous. And I myself, can only digest with small rocks, so it suited me just fine. And so we had a fine banquet, but we had our entertainment, lovely music, speaking with the Mole Queen. The manatees were still there, eyeing Edward so terribly. And, well, when Americans ask you to keep up foreign relations, some things might happen between a captain and a queen that a parrot couldn't possibly comment on. But if there should happen to be a half mole in the House of Lords in the next 30 years, I wouldn't be so surprised if I were you. And in the end, for the sake of America, for the sake of my people, my country, also our captain's country, and the manatees themselves, for they were technically in the hollow of the earth, which is what we've been sent to make contact with. We just gave them Edward. No great loss. There's many more Edwards. Practically 50% of the people on any given ship are named Edward. So we didn't think it's true. Small price to pay to colonize yet more land for the sake of the crown. And I would say that I would say that I think he's living well with him, but in fact I saw him be eaten entirely whole, much as I would slurp down a little fish myself. So that's how it all went. We came out a season later. The queen was vastly pregnant, and I dropped several eggs on my way out. So I fully expect that my parrot progeny will take over in time.
But please do tell us truly, Horatia, how was the Edward bacon?
Viscount. You're not implying that
I mean, we're all among friends here.
Oh, I did though. You old boy, you know me too well. No, I did. It was excellent bacon. Truly worthy of Whole Foods. You'll find out what that is about in a few years. We parrots are a little psychic sometimes. So yeah, it was absolutely delicious. Don't blame the manatees one bit. I still keep I have a pen pal among them. Actually, we still reminisce. We all still wish Edward could be with us, and by with us I mean in our stomachs. And part of our anatomy as his cells join our cells. I love a manatee. They're really lovely people.
Oh, I love that tale, Horatia. All right. What tale would you like to hear Lord Percival Fishbottom regale the crowd with?
Lord Percival, I did hear not too long ago that you encountered the vanilla pirates off the coast of Madagascar. And I do believe there was a parrot involved in that story too. And as I am a bird and therefore a rank narcissist, that is the story I would like to hear from you.
Oh, goodness. Well, therein lies a tale. A very long tale with stripes, as it happens, because, of course, Madagascar is inhabited primarily by lemurs. And while the people of Madagascar are lovely, it is, in fact, the lemurs that we had come to bargain with, because in some areas, lemurs are extremely skilled at the harvest of vanilla, which is an orchid, as you well know. And so we had set out with a lemur whisperer, which was, in fact, our ship's parrot, who could speak the tongue of the lemur and translate it into the Queen's English. The problem being, of course, that we could not then communicate back to the lemurs except in interpretive dance, which I will admit it is extremely difficult for one of my upbringing to engage in interpretive dance. I am, of course, a member of the House of Lords, and we do not dance. It is we can waltz somewhat if we have enough to drink, but we are not well known.
And if I recall, you also, your house in particular, takes everything literally, and therefore the interpretive part of the dance is also very difficult.
It is extremely difficult.
Lord Percival, I'm curious about what type of dancing, especially given that you are as all fish bottoms are, you have the splendid tail and countenance of a tuna fish.
Well, it is not entirely easy for us. The country dances are extremely difficult. However, they have made great strides recently in wheeled aquaria. And so given sufficient moisture on the lower half and a large enough enclosure, it is a far cry from the terrible old days when we were forced to travel in a bucket with wheels, which was undignified for everyone. But now, yes, we have very, very fine aquaria on wheels, and so can engage in some of the dances that do not require extremely sharp turns. I fear that my turning radius within the aquarium is still not great, but I have no doubt that the scholars and engineers will fix that shortly. Anyway, as I was saying, there we were off the coast of Madagascar with our ship's parrot, who was translating for the lemurs, who were harvesting the vanilla orchids. And this was going reasonably well, I thought. We had somehow managed through the medium of interpretive dance, mostly by the parrot and my first mate, Bob, to express to the lemurs that we would trade them various things for the vanilla orchid. And I mostly mostly millipedes, actually. Giant millipedes were what they desired. It is an interesting fact of lemur anatomy that they like to chew on the giant millipede in order to ingest the toxins it secretes. It is not in me to judge how other people or other species spend their time, so if they wish to chew upon the giant millipede, it is not my problem, as long as we get vanilla orchids. And of course,
that is where the common phrase comes from, to chew upon the giant millipede.
Yes. Many of our poets lately have been engaging in millipede. I don't know if I approve, but apparently it is less habit-forming than opium, so who am I to complain?
And legal in several states now.
Yes, well, very. I do not know if it is legal or if they have simply not adjusted to the times to make laws against it. Anyway, so there we were, having dug up a number of millipedes. When you have access to shovels and an entire crew full of people who can wield said shovels, you can generate a lot of giant millipedes, which the lemurs, being primarily arboreal, could not. And I felt that things were going well until I am afraid the dreaded fossa descended upon us. In quite a literal sense, fossas are a large, carnivorous, cat-like creature related to the mongoose that feeds upon lemur kind. And I am afraid that the concentration of lemurs upon the vanilla orchids had excited the interest of the fossa. And so they came in hordes, great hordes. It is truly, if you have not seen a group of 100-pound tree mongooses charging at you, you have not lived. Or perhaps you have lived a better life than I would not presume to say. Obviously, we could not allow our trade delegation to fail, and we did not wish to see the lemurs, who had, of course, trusted us, and were also stoned off their respective tails on millipede. We could not allow them to suffer from the fossa incursion. So we fired our ship's cannons at the fossas. And if only we had aimed better, things might have gone much better. But I am afraid that, mistakes were made, as they say. You cannot expect me to handle every minute detail of aiming. I am, after all, a lord. Well, the vanilla harvest, we had what the lemurs had previously harvested. And we had acquired, I am afraid, a blood feud with the fossas. And it turns out, I fear, that the fossas had managed rudimentary shipbuilding techniques, and so came after us in rafts. And this would have been a thing that normally any good British warship could deal with if we had not expended all of our cannonballs on accidentally shooting the lemurs. Mistakes, as I have said before, were made. We felt, therefore, that perhaps a strategic retreat would be in our best interest from the fossas, who were threatening to swarm up the sides of the ship, and indeed several of them did manage to gain a foothold on the vessel, and I had to duel one single-handedly with sword versus giant mongoose, a great battle which I shall not bore you with. Obviously, you have all done this yourselves many times. And
but Percival, I would really love to hear. I would really love to hear about that, since naturally, if you were going to do that battle, being as you and your house are, aquatic, that you would have dived off the ship and to meet the fossa at their rafts.
Now, you would think that, but in fact, once I was in the water, I would have been terribly overwhelmed, and also there were sharks. And my people have a long-standing history of enmity with the shark kind, owing to an ancient ancestor, and, the tuna and the shark, they are not friends. It is,
Of course. I must be thinking of a different tale.
No, it is fine. I in fact dueled on the deck, and as the fossa was far more maneuverable than my aquaria, I was forced to do it one-handed while hanging from the rigging with my other hand, which of course I could manage due to my excessive upper body strength, which I have developed from wheeling that aquarium everywhere during the waltz. So while dangling from one hand from the rigging, I fought the fossa with my sword.
Oh no! Oh no!
How is it possible?
And seemed inadvisable.
Frozen
Oh,
in mid-tail.
oh, Lord Percival, you're back. I thought we were about to lose the end of the tail.
Oh no!
Yes,
How much did you lose at me?
we were captivated by you were hanging from the rigging and
Yes.
about to.
Yes, I was fighting one-handed with the sword. I could not use my pistol and end the battle quickly because I was dangling from the rigging with my pistol hand. So I was forced to slay the mighty Fossa champion one-handed while hanging from the rigging. He eventually figured out that he could duck under me merely by, running into the captain's quarters. But fortunately, the ship's cook happened to be there on hand and was extremely furious about the vanilla issue. The cook, of course, was a Frenchman, and you know how they feel about their vanilla. So
Of course.
Fossa back out with a cleaver. And I must say that the hardtack that voyage was remarkably vanilla flavored. I've never had such fine hardtack, and the weevils in a fine cream sauce. It was extraordinary. I recommend it highly. So, having battled the great Fossa chieftain with he might not have been a chieftain. He might have just been some random individual. Quite frankly, I do not know what the Fossa system of government is. They are mongoose, so perhaps they have no system of government. They were just extremely angry. Having slain the large Fossa champion, I booted him off the ship, and then with the assistance of the bosun and the bosun's mate, managed to get back into my aquarium. And we sailed away very quickly because the Fossas were coming in rafts quite swiftly. And indeed, things might have worked out better had the Suez Canal been in place, but I fear it was not, as that is still in the distant planning stages. So we were forced to go south around the Cape, and it was an extremely perilous journey. There were many vast storms which swept across the mainland and lifted up several extremely angry Cape buffalo and dropped them on the deck of the ship, which I was then forced to duel, although fortunately they do not corner well, so I could use my aquarium in order to fight them off. But of course, these are the sort of things that plague anyone traveling that great southern passage, so we will not spend too much time upon that. At last, of course, we arrived in England with the remnants of our fine vanilla crop and several lemurs who had survived the accidental misaiming issue, and one Fossa who, as it turned out, had been clinging to the figurehead the entire trip. He was quite an extraordinary Fossa. Bob adopted him and named him Fossa Bob because Bob is not good at original names.
Oh, is that where Lord Fossa Bob comes from? I've
Yes,
always
as it
wondered
happens.
about his accent.
Yes, he is in fact, unlike the gentleman that I slew, he is in fact a noble among his people, and so for services to the crown, which I believe he had a lengthy career as a spy against France in the late great unpleasantness with Napoleon, he was knighted for his service and now has a seat in the House of Lords, and we certainly could not be prouder for our role in having brought him to our shores.
Oh, a stirring tale. Thank you so much, Lord Fishbottom.
I wish to apologize. This is an object lesson, though, in what happens when you care for your offspring. I don't recommend it. And truly why you should use monkeys instead of children for all your household needs. Children are much less convenient and entertaining. So I do apologize. This is why I drop my eggs wherever I please. I no longer take part.
But do they fling the same things that monkeys fling is the question we must ask.
But do you want the answer? You won't like it.
No, perhaps I do not. That is why I employ a nanny, and the children do not leave the nursery until they are at least 18.
I mean,
that's
there
the
are-
life. That's the life.
There are quite literally children present, Lord, so... Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, my friends, for coming to another another wonderful Friday evening in the pub. Your stories never get old, and I have loved hearing them, their renditions once again. So please, everybody who heard these tales, please give it up for Lord Percival Fishbottom, Horatia Hornbreaker, our wonderful parrot, and Cornbread, the carbohydrate people. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody.
It was a delight to be here with you all.
Thank you for hosting our annual tales.
All right.
Remember, vote Fossil Bob. So none of you can vote your peasants back.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, I'm not sure what's up next, but sure. Actually, I could probably look it up and see. Oh, okay. So I think at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have a Conling panel that is right here, and I think yeah. So we'll take a little break.
Put my parrot offspring to bed again.
Oh yes, go for it.
Climbed out, so I will be back in time for that panel. All right, kiddo, come on.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yes, thanks everybody.
Take care. Bye bye.